Okay, so now next up, we've got Scott, who's a senior digital product manager at Koala, and he's going to be talking around why keeping it simple is key. Scott's invention would be freezing time to quote unquote get more shit done, which we can all empathize with. So please, whoops, cheers, hollers, and a loud round of applause to welcome Scott.
Oh, I really need to change that photo. Yeah, it's great to be here, and also sort of not great to be following those two presentations. Dave with a music premiere. Thanks very much, Dave. I won't be that nice. Thanks for Content Square for inviting me up. I actually did one before, but it was pre-COVID, or it was right in the middle of COVID. So basically, they tell me it was a larger room than this, but I was just speaking to my monitor in the study. So you guys are actually lucky that I'm actually wearing dress-up pants, not pajamas at this point in time. So what I'd like to do is just sort of start out by talking about very generally keeping it simple. And I know the sort of default for a lot of people is like, okay, we're trying to get more stuff done. We're trying to get more conversion rate, more interaction from the users. We have a whole bunch of information that we want to put out. So let's put in more and more and more stuff to the website. But wanted to basically go through some instances for ours that could hopefully help you guys in terms of what we did by taking things away. So looking at things, everybody's always distracted. Could you just quickly put your hand up if you've checked your phone in the last 10 minutes? Everybody. Like, it's the old joke now of like, 50s and 60s, our best and brightest basically sent people to the moon. 80s, financial engineering, 90s financial engineering, and that turned out really well. And the last 20 years has basically been, our best and brightest have been very focused on getting you to click that fucking button. And we've done really well with that, It's so, but you can see, at least for us, all our page groups, average time 43 seconds. That's for us. I'm sure you guys are pretty much similar. So you have less than a minute to actually get people's attention, and everybody has the attention of a lemur on cocaine at this point in time. I hate the phrase "too long didn't read." I get that sometimes, and it's like, God damn it, it's a page. Read it, understand it. I don't need to summarize for you. It's there. But simplification can be a benefit because of that. If you're looking at it from your lowest common denominator on things, and designing and building for that, and really being critical around your pathways and your user journeys, and seeing what you can go. We basically went in and more features, more essential information. For us, we sell fairly high-end items. Our average basket size is around $1,000. And we have a large team that basically is continuing to get more and more complexity in things. So what we found is that it's good every once in a while to start to look at how can we provide that info to the users at the right info at the right time, but then how can we take stuff out there where it's not. So I want to go through a couple of use cases. Start out with info and product pages, merchandising, which was a good learning from us, and then how can we basically best adapt for multi-session. So keeping it super simple, actually, that's wrong. Keeping it simple, stupid, I think is probably better. But first use case, just going through. We take away a product that pretty much everybody was really for. And we stopped basically trying to look in how can we design for the lowest, I call it the lowest common denominator, which isn't quite PC, but think about it as your Aunt Marge who can barely turn on a TV. For us, the first thing that we had was, we call it delivery checker. And I'm sure you guys have a lot of stuff. CS gets lots of complaints. When's my package going to arrive? How much is it going to cost here? What are we going to need to do? So a lot of inquiries coming in for that information. And so what we did was we went off and we had a delivery checker, which is a real-time bringing it in, real-time on stock availability, on delivery timing, and any fees on that. So it makes sense. People are asking about it. It's wasting a lot of CS time. It's blocking people from purchasing. We need to have this wonderful thing. So we went away, we designed it, we launched it. We did a quick analysis off the back end. Looks great. Yep, great. Positive for the A/B test after a few weeks. Moving on to the next thing. which is what I think pretty much everybody does. Because, you know, again, lemurs on cocaine, next thing, next thing, next thing. And it turns out nobody can freaking focus, right? So we were designing for Econ 101 of like giving everybody all the information so they can make an informed decision, and we can basically make a rational decision on buying that mattress or buying that sofa or buying, shelling out $1,000 or $1,500 for us. But it turns out, you know, we were designing for that perfect world. What a real world is that people basically are emotional, time poor, and again, going back to that 43 seconds, has a very limited amount of attention span to make an information, or make a decision to go ahead and click that button. So what we had here was potentially getting the right info at the right time, and was that actually needed? So what we wanted was, wait, wasn't this the right thing to do? Maybe we should test this. And this came out of a colleague that came into this with fresh eyes. Looking at this of like, well, maybe this isn't the right thing to surface on the product page where people are looking at it. So we tested. And what we did was we basically removed this wonderful feature that everybody said we wanted to have, which makes sense to have, what customer service was inquiring about and customers were wanting to use. And what we had was a net increase in the overall conversion rate. Everybody knows that if you surprise people with delivery charges or delivery issues in the checkout, you'll have a drop off. And that's what we saw. We had an 11% drop off. But we netted out positive for this, because what we found is that people, when they're making decisions about the product, they're still not emotionally invested. So they're not basically saying, you know what, I really want to have this. If you surface logistic issues there, well, they're not talking about the product, you're talking about the delivery side of things. So people are more likely to go, oh, you know what, screw it, I'm off to somebody else. So what we saw was that net 14% increase and a revenue per user increase of about $2.70, which was quite nice to have. So what we have is we took that away, and we're still iterating on this. We're still, the main use case is like, it's not that you forget about how surfacing your delivery information, we just need to do it in a better way. We haven't quite figured that out yet, but we're in the process of a third iteration for it. So two main takeaways from this one. Yeah, as I said, logistical realities, it comes back to right info, right time. Getting people surfacing all the information too quickly becomes problematic, because people are in one stage of the user funnel, and that same person will need that information probably a little bit later or a little bit earlier. So basically taking a lens to that rather than shoving a whole bunch of things right in front of them. And then, yeah, more information, not usually always the best at this point in time. Again, 43 seconds or less than a minute. Next slide. Next example on this is around a cross-sell. And every marketer on earth knows that you're spending oodles of money to get people onto the site, and oodles of time and effort to get them further down into the funnel and then through to the checkout and getting them to that point. And so the best way, aside from increasing the overall conversion rate, is increasing your AOV. The best way for that is usually merchandising, better offers, discounts, promotionals, and cross-sell. So it's not anything new. Everybody knows that that they should be doing this, and it's because it works. You push things in front of people, people add more to the cart, and there's more stuff there. Unfortunately for us, it wasn't really as appropriate. We sell, so horses for courses, this may work. Results may vary if you try this, but for us, it was like, okay, we have a very large, not really that large of a catalog, but we sell very high-end, expensive things that take a little bit of time to think about. Putting in, say, another couple $100 into the cart when you're already spending $1,000, a couple $100 item, even if it's a pillow or a blanket or whatever, it's a couple $100. It's not a Snickers bar at the Woolies checkout. You're not going to just sort of chuck it in. I think PayPal did a thing way back when with the average, average type of thing where people actually start to care is about a couple $100, like $200 to $300. It's probably more now, but once you cross that threshold, people are going to. It's another purchase journey. So surfacing that in that point in time, seeing that okay, we're actually going to be restarting the purchase journey rather than actually getting through and getting the money from the person. It's also confusing to the user because they're basically invested and they're not invested. It's back and forth, and you're messing with their time. So for operations in Japan, we tested this. We basically took this fully away. What we saw was that add to cart rate up by about 9%, order completed up by about 8%, or sorry, 6%. A good level of increase. So we took it away of like, okay, we're not going to completely abandon merchandising. Let's look at 80-20 rule. Does this apply? Fully does. So let's focus on the ones that are actually useful for the user. Let's focus on making sure that those are discounted and always actually giving value to the user, because we've taken away all of the cross-sell. Our discount rate is actually improved for that. Let's go ahead and reinvest that in the areas that work and more useful to value. Let's see what we can do. And what we saw was that for those categories where we're basically focusing on, we got that 16 to 20% increase there. And we're continuing this. We're basically looking at this in terms of cross-sell on the product form, then we're looking at it in terms of the cart, but basically always making sure that it's relevant, it's targeted, and it's discounted, and you're actually giving real value rather than just sort of spamming somebody in front. So the takeaways on this one, again, always just sort of sense check your assumptions. Everybody knows things are true, and it's good. Everybody's time poor, we all are, but it's good every once in a while to basically say, okay, what are any of these sacred cows that we have? Let's just sort of look, test, and see if it iterates, and if that is actually as applicable as the textbook says as it is for us. And that sometimes the results can actually be quite surprising. And then, so those were two successes. I'd like to sort of share one that maybe went sort of the other way, because as we all know, if you're continually doing successes, that probably means you're not pushing hard enough. So you need to fail to actually make things work. So this is the one around having sort of a on the longer purchase journey here. What we wanted to have here is realizing that we have the same person with different needs all the way through the purchase journey. And for us, we have a multi-session purchase journey. So people will go, they'll see the product, they'll probably piss off, go to Google, research us on our competitors, research us on our review sites, and then come back to the site. And this usually takes between a day to a couple days down the road. So the hypothesis here was like, okay, we have these people, they've gone through, they've either given us the information, they've added it to the cart, we can have a login and we can have these people be able to say, all right, I can save the product and come back to it at a later time. So we're skipping out all the other steps on the top of the funnel. Won't that be great? We'll have a great uplift when people adopt this. So we went ahead, looking at this from a new users to returning and buying, also a little bit interesting here on the attractiveness rate. Just the differences you can sort of see. Very much product USP focused on for people coming in, and then for further down, they're basically looking at all the services and how to get it. So basically those differences accounting for and being able to say, all right, let's go ahead and have a favorites feature, which is what we designed, which is basically a save the cart functionality. Everybody's sort of seen this on everything. You guys probably have something similar on your site. So we basically launched this up and we'd say, all right, let's get a higher conversion for this. Did a great amount of design and development and launched, and yes, this is going to work, or at least that's what I was saying. And no, nobody really cared. Basically just sort of fell flat. Nobody really liked it. Adoption was super low. And for those that really adopted it, the best we could say is it doesn't hurt, but no one really cares and no one really uses it, and it just doesn't really work. So at the end of the day, again, it's attention span. We have something in there that doesn't really hurt, but it's not really doing anything for us, so get rid of it. So we shelved the thing, and so we don't have favorites anymore. We may go ahead and do it in the future, but at this point in time, no, it's just not worth it. Again, horses for courses, you guys, results may vary. For us, we have sort of a higher end products and larger basket size, and a low, comparably a smaller catalog. But for us, this basically made sense to keep the experience at the end simple and not distract people by features that weren't actually usable. So looking through and looking ahead, what we'd like to do, and I'm sure there's everybody here is probably equally enthusiastic about it. But since we have, going through Content Square, any type of analytics tools, it becomes really obvious on us the differences between user groups. And within the user groups, the different approaches and different areas of focus within the user journey. So looking at it from there, there are two things that we take away. It's like, okay, we need to get the basics right on every step of the journey to make sure that, okay, from a baseline user experience, we're okay. We're not pissing too many people off, but the baseline will always be just sort of an average aggregate of everybody that's coming to your site. And that's no longer good enough because the tools are all commercially available at this point to start doing personalization at scale. So starting out, one thing that we're actually really quite stoked on, Content Square has an API export. I don't know what the contracts are for the rest of you guys, but we're on like a 3-month contract, which was always sort of really painful to see all of that information, which is incremental and additional to the information that we get from all of the events being fired on the site and all the other tracking that we have. We have this other layer that's super data rich, but it would disappear after 3 months. And I was like, oh, great, I can't go back to that. So using the API basically to pull this into our customer data platform, combining it with everything else, being able to segment, starting to use the AI and ML tools to segment in much more of a granular way, and then start to use this with ad tech, start to use this with an omni-channel approach. We're a D2C pure play. We're starting to move into physical retail. How do we back up the level of data and insight that we see online and express that in the physical world? And then on-site personalization. So there's no reason why somebody coming in for, say, the second time, looking at a particular product, doesn't get to see a different experience. That used to be only Amazon that could be able to do it at scale, but now that the tools are all commercialized, and that's one thing we're really looking forward to do. And okay, so very quickly, just a quick summary. Sorry, I sort of went through that again. Lemur on cocaine. Sorry, I'm not taking drugs. I may have given that impression. It's too early. Too early. Yeah, so martinis, right? Overall, just simplify the information for your users. Again, constantly remind you of like, especially when you're looking at the site, you're getting a lot of pressure from various stakeholders. We need to include this. This is critical. We need to put this in. We need this information and flow and experience for things. Whether that's a valid thing or just the hippo of the day type of thing of we need, I don't know, exploding kittens or something like that. Putting too much in front of anybody is detrimental. So being able to push back and say, okay, no, let's just keep it simple, and remembering that, okay, it's less than a minute. That's what we have. That's the only thing that we can have. So let's make sure that it's worthwhile. Again, we're all time poor, but setting aside once a month, once every other month, once a fortnight, to basically say, okay, what are the sacred cows here? Well, what can we sort of take a good look at of what we actually know is true? I play this game with my boss and our managing director of basically saying, give me your 5 things for the site that you know, hand on heart, are true, and we'll test them. And the experience I have so far is about 3, maybe 4 are actually right, but there's usually 1 or 2 that are just completely wrong. So basically saying that of like the assumptions at every level can be detrimental. It's good to basically sense check that and take the time. And then obviously for any new features or stuff that comes in, taking the time to do the research ahead of time to inform that and be data-led at every level is the goal. But then as a product manager and any member of the product team, if you're honest with yourself, you'll know that probably around 40, 60% of your features that you roll out really won't make a difference. So being honest enough to basically go, all right, I'm emotionally invested in this, it works, but you know what? It didn't. It sucks, get rid of it. And move on and iterate. Because if you're not failing, I'd say you're probably not trying hard enough. So, and cheers.